Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Set Your Wire, a.k.a. Coach Bird, and I'm the host of the BYRDCAGE show. Cousin Tracy.
What's up?
We are back at it, episode 124, you know what I'm saying? Very special guest, you know what I'm saying, in the cage today, you know what I mean? Hey, we know people in high places.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? We know people in high places, you know what I'm saying? Don't be mad because, you know, you don't have what we have here. That's why this is special. But
and let's be clear, it's not the we, it's the him, but I just ride on his coattail.
No, it's the way. It's definitely the way because there is no BYRDCAGE situation without my cousin Tracy. But our guest today, you know what I'm saying, sitting on the couch in the cage, educator, currently superintendent of Woodbury Schools District. You know what I'm saying? My man Andrew Bell is in the building with us today. Just say what's up to our viewers real quick.
What's up? What's up? What's up, cousin?
That's what's up. That's what's up. So before we get started and rolling, let's just let the folk know where you're from. We like for our guests to let our viewers know what area they are coming from. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm a local kid, so I grew up in South Jersey. Went to Highland High School, you know, back in the 80s. That's how old I am. My family's originally from Philadelphia, so we're the only, for many years, we were the only people in our family that lived over here in New Jersey.
Got you.
My parents are from Philadelphia, and I spent time living in Baltimore and living in Camden. And right now I live in Sicklerville.
Okay. That's what's up. So you went to Highland High School. My man, I think my man Mike Jones is a VP over at in Highland now. He was when I first got to West Tech. He was my freshman coach, and he was history teacher at West Tech. But I think he's a VP. Shouts out to my man Mike. Coming out of high school, did you play basketball?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, played 4 years.
Okay.
It's pretty decent.
Okay. I like the humility.
But coming out of high school, man, I didn't have no grades. I was a pretty smart kid, but back in the day, in those days, we were the first like kind of group of black students that kind of infiltrated Highland from other areas, and I struggled. I was on these college prep classes, and I struggled and went to summer school a lot my freshman and sophomore year. And I got out of all those college prep classes, and I sat in the art room for most of my day in my junior, senior year. And by the time I got to my senior year, I graduated, but it was, it wasn't pretty. Right. But I made it across, and, colleges were interested, but I had no grades.
Got you. So that leads kind of into my next question. Plans on coming out of high school, like, did you know when you were graduating, like, I got to go to college? Was that or was it kind of like, I got to figure this out, or?
I had to figure it out because I didn't go to college right away.
Oh, okay.
I went right to work, and I went to work working for my dad. And I did that for probably a year and a half, 2 years before I got onto my college journey. Okay. And finally went somewhere to go play. But I had to go to work, and then I had like a rude awakening that this ain't it.
Right.
This is not it.
We got you. So when you did go to school, Morgan State, right?
Yeah, I made a couple stops before I got to Morgan State.
Okay. Yeah. Well, what were some of those stops? Because we just like to let kids know, like, everybody's journey is different.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Some people, come out of high school, go to college, play, or do whatever right away. Some people, like you just said, you went to work, a couple stops before you got to Morgan State. You know what I'm saying? So we just like to let our viewers know that, it doesn't matter
how you start is how you finish.
How you finish. Right.
Yeah.
Facts.
And the reason why I wanted to talk about like where I started, because I had to go to Camden County.
Okay.
And at the time, my grandfather, he was an athlete. He was like, he played baseball. He played basketball. And he would always tell us to go to college, but we didn't really have the money.
Gotcha.
And I called him one day, and I was like, I want to go to school. And he lived in Philly. He said, come over. I went to his house. He gave me his credit card. He wrote a little note that said, I'm allowing my grandson to use his credit card to sign up for classes. So I went to Camden County, but back then it was like a little bit of a stigma to go to Camden County because Highland is right down the street.
There. Yeah.
But I wound up going, and one of my high school buddies that graduated the year before me, we went together, and we kind of had this plan. At some point, we were going to either play at Camden County, we were going to try to get some classes to transfer somewhere. And so we go to Camden County, and one day I walked through the gym. And I walked through the gym, and they was in there hooping.
Okay.
I mean, these guys. I'm like, I've never seen these guys.
What year was that?
This was probably 1990, 91.
Charles Grasty, Chuck from Philly, from Abington. He was at Camden County then. He was a point guard.
Those Philly guys were in it. It was Philly, DC, and so it was about 4 of these guys that I became friends with. One of them I'm still friends with to this day. He's like, you know, one of my homies, one of my best friends, and I met this guy. It was guy Brian Graves there, and somebody's telling me, yo, you know, he led the public league in scoring 2 years ago, and I was like, this dude's a monster, right? He's a cop over in Philly, and you know, most people know him. And then there was my man Pete, and you know, there was guys like Heidi Hart and all these guys over there playing, and I'm like, man, you know, there's some hoopers in a community college,
right.
And back then it was this guy named Norman. He's called him Stormin' Norman. He was the coach. And he was
Stormin' Norman?
No.
I can't say because of Caddy.
No.
And these guys will wind up, you know, we found out these guys were getting scholarships to go to all of like the local HBCUs that were going to, most of them were going to Maryland Eastern Shore.
Yep.
And they were playing. So back then it was Camden County. And you find out that the other guys that were really playing were going to play for Fang Mitchell at Gloucester County.
And then he went to Compton, right?
Yeah, he went to Coppin. By the time I got down to Baltimore, he was at Coppin. But there were so many decent ball players.
Right.
And so I stayed there for, you know, just enough to get some credits. And then I went on to play at another college. Another high school friend of mine, brother, was a coach at this small college in Maryland called Capital College.
Okay.
So me and a couple of my high school buddy, we went there, and I played there for a year, and I was hooping, man. It was fun.
Right.
I was homesick. We had no gym on campus.
Oh, shit.
So we had practice 4 o'clock in the morning. We had to get up in this little van and go to practice. And I was homesick, but I was in the best shape of my life.
Right.
You know, it was fun. And then it kind of fell apart after 1 year. You know, guys left, and so I decided that I wanted to go to Bowie State, and I was going to go there to play basketball. Okay. And then they had a coaching change, and I got accepted to Morgan. I said, well, I'm out. I wasn't coming home at that point.
Right.
You know, so I was like, you know, I told my mom and dad, I said, I'm going to Morgan.
Right.
And that's how I ended up at Morgan. But at this time, I'm already, you know, 3 years out of high school.
Right. Now, you played at Morgan State as well?
I did not play.
Oh, you did? Okay.
No,
okay.
I did not play. I should have played,
Right.
had opportunities to play. But
Okay.
at this point, you know, I'm in survival mode. I got to get, I'm not living on campus.
Got you.
I got an apartment. I got to go to work.
Got you.
And Morgan, you know, the atmosphere of Morgan then was that it was enough availability to play pickup basketball and be in the intramurals. That was good, right? That was good for us.
Got you.
And all of my friends in my crew, we're all like basketball players. We all play in high school. So we used to go to the basketball games. And the people used to boo, like when we used to come in. They're like, y'all should be on the court playing. And y'all walking in the stands trying to look cute.
You're right.
But, you know, we were all, at that point, you know, I'm you know, I'm close to being like 20, 21.
Okay.
And, you know, that part I was okay with.
Okay.
You know, and, you know, we knew all the basketball players. We all hung out.
Right.
I did go to a couple of practices and, you know, walk on. I just felt at that point I was like, I've had enough.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you.
I walked in. It was a funny story because I walked in my first year and I went to the vice president of student affairs and I wanted to, you know, I was trying to get my housing together. I didn't have no housing. And he just looked at me. He goes, "Come with me." He walked me right into the coach's office and said, "Can you use a kid like this?" Right. And so I went to practice the next day and I was like, I'm good.
I ain't really probably got you.
I'm good.
So the bug was over.
It was. I mean, but it was just, it's funny. If I could go back, I probably, if I had somebody in my ear saying, "No, you should play."
Right.
But when you go back, we played so much basketball every day. I just didn't play for the team. We played every day.
Right.
You know, we played at every playground there was, every summer league. You know, people, you know, knew you for playing basketball. That's what we did. And the team wasn't really that great. So
Right.
It was like,
So it was missing. Like I ain't really missing.
no, but when you go back, you just like, if I could go back, I would have just sat on the bench as a walk on and try to work my way up and play because it was some great players that played in that MEAC. Coppin was, you know, right around on the other side of town. There was some great players that played there during that time.
So you did 2 years at Morgan State?
I did 4 years. I almost had to start over.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay.
Jeez.
Okay. So none of those credits and none of that.
Some of them did, but I had changed my major.
Okay.
I changed my major my junior year. It's like funny how I got into education. I was a graphic design major, so like all of this stuff you got to airbrush. I used to do all that stuff back in the day.
Okay.
And one summer, I needed another job because I wasn't coming home. I lived off campus, and I was like, I ain't going home.
Right.
And so I tried to go get a work study job, and I was working at Foot Locker part time, but I needed like a day job. And they said, well, the only thing left is to go to community service. So I was like, all right, I'll work in community service. I don't have a problem with that.
Right.
I go to community service. I meet this lady named Dr. Deanna Vahimi, and she said, oh yeah, I'm starting this camp for kids, and their kids either they're adjudicated or they got probation, or they need some counseling,
Right.
whatever they need like mentors. So it's myself and like 3 or 4 other students. So we kind of started this program called Kawumba.
Okay.
And I think it was like creating urban unity between Morgan and Baltimore adolescents. That was the acronym.
Right.
And we did that for a summer. So one day, I'm working with these kids, and like these kids are like, I think I was like 21. These kids are crazy, right? But we was having fun working summer camp. It's hot. We just we actually put this program together. We just just winging it.
Right.
And this guy, like, he would come and he was like watching me every day. And then one day, I was walking, we were like coming from lunch, and he was the dean of education, but he's like, come here. And, I was talking to him. He had this paper in his hand.
Okay.
And it was my transcript. And he said, he looked at my transcript, he said, you should change your major. You should get into education. You could be an art teacher.
Right.
I was like, an art teacher?
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, come on, man. Like, and he had went through my transcript, and he had told me, he said, you could get in the school of education. You have to take the praxis. And at Morgan, you had to take this praxis before you can get into school education, right?
Okay.
He said the test is in 2 days, right? And it was like $200 and something. He said, I already signed you up and I paid for it.
Wow.
I was like, what? Like, he was like, and then you had to take 3 summer school classes,
Okay.
and then you'll still be on track to graduate
Gotcha.
on time. So I didn't know much, right? And I'm kind of winging it on my own. I never called home to ask my parents nothing. I was like, all right, it sounds good to me.
Right.
He's like, I think you have natural ability with kids. I've been watching you. I think you're natural. So I took the test. I passed it. Didn't even study. Like, just took the test, changed my major, and that's how I got into education.
Wow.
And that year, I started doing like these classes, and then I still wasn't convinced that I wanted to be a teacher, but I
Right.
was like, the guy told me to do it, I'm gonna do it.
Right.
Back then, graphic design, we didn't have no computers. I'm gonna be a graphic design major. We wasn't even working on computers. We was doing stuff by hand.
That's a
There was
good
no
point.
computers on campus. So I do that, and I'm doing my last leg of student teaching in Baltimore, and we get done in April. And the principal lady was like, hey, can you come to the office? I want to talk to you. So I go to her office, and she says, we want to offer you a full-time job. And I was like, for real? And she was like, yeah, you've been like tremendous here with, and I was at Hartford Heights Elementary. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. Like, you offered me a job. And then she told me how much money it was. She said, well, it's like prorated for the end of the year, but next year when you come back, you'll make $24,800. And I was like, trying not to do a backflip. I was like, $24,800. I'm like, I'm thinking like the money I'm making in Foot Locker.
Right.
I'm cool. I got my own
I'm
apartment. I'm straight. So she just, I didn't even look. She's like, sign here. I just signed it, and I started working.
Wow.
That's what's up.
I started teaching.
Wow. Now, what grade was that?
That was elementary. I was teaching.
Okay,
I was an
okay.
art teacher, and I was teaching elementary K to 5.
Okay.
And those, in the next year they transferred me to another school on the other side of town. I think they picked the worst school to send me to. And it was a school in the projects. And man, Baltimore was like, at that point, that was my home. I was
Okay.
living down there, and I was teaching, and I was having a ball.
When did you come back this way?
So I came back this way in '97, and what happened was I was in Baltimore my second year teaching in Baltimore, and then I just I had already graduated from college, and I was just going through some things personally. I was trying to get my life, I was a little bit of a wild child. I was trying to get myself back together. Some things that happened at work, and I just walked into work one day, and I told my boss, I said, I'm quitting. I'm going back home. And I packed my stuff up. I came back home, didn't have a job. I wasn't smart back then. I didn't burn my sick day. I just left, just not knowing. And I moved back in with my parents. That was a tough transition. I had been out the house for so long, and I was looking for a job. Okay. And I was thinking I'm going to Philly. And I had some people that worked in Philly, some of my cousins, and they were introducing me to people. I could not get a job in Philly. And so when I came back home, back then you had to look through the newspaper to get a job, right? Sunday you did one ad, so I'm looking through the newspaper. and it was like part-time language arts teacher, St. Jonah Art School on Collins Avenue or Collingswood on Black Horse Pike. So it was like from 8:30 to 11:30. It was $12 an hour. I said, well, let me do this.
Right.
I signed up, and then in the afternoon, I would leave there, get some lunch, or go home and change my clothes, and I worked at the neighborhood center on
Kane Avenue.
That's how I was introduced to Camden. I didn't know anything about Camden.
Wow.
That was my first introduction to Camden was to work at the neighborhood center.
Right.
And so then I started to realize, well, maybe I need to teach in New Jersey. So I took the special, certificate part so I can get my certification. And I said I had been home all this year, working part-time, living at home. And again, I'm looking through the paper and I see Camden, right? Camden City Public Schools. And they had all these listed jobs that were open. And it's like art teacher. So I was like, oh, Mom, I hollered at that. They said, call the number. I called the number. And so the guy says, it was Stuart Goldblum answered. They hooked me up with him, right? Mr. Goldblum. So he said, do you have a certification? I was like, yeah, I just got it the other day.
Right.
He was like, you got a certification? I was like, yeah, I'm certified. He's like, and you teach art? I was like, yeah. He's like, what are you doing now? I was like, nothing. He was like, come down. He's like, it's not an interview, so I don't care what you got on. Just come down to the central office. I got on T-shirt and shorts. I think I just got finished cutting the grass. It was like beginning of August. It's hot. So I go down there. I don't know anything about Camden. Really, just I knew where central office was because I was working on, when I was working at Kane Avenue, I just knew how to get to wherever I needed to get to. Right. So I'm driving around trying to look for the, central office downtown. I walk up, they let me upstairs. I walk in his office. As soon as he looks at me, he just turns around and goes, pick a school. So I'm like, pick a school. I'm looking at the schools and I'm like, I'll take Camden High.
Right.
And he was like, you sure? I was like, yeah. And then I said, no, wait a minute. I said, let me, I saw Bonzel.
Okay.
This is a true story. I don't know anything about Bonzel.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's where I went up to the third grade.
The only reason why I chose Bonzel is because I knew that the Black Horse Pike turned into Mount Ephraim Avenue. So I would not get lost coming to work. And he kind of looked at me and was like, are you sure? I was like, yeah. Send me there. He called the principal on the phone. He said, sometimes it's better to be lucky than to be good. Right. She's like, I got you an art teacher. He said, and he's certified. And she was like, really? And I went to go meet her. It was Dr. Rock. And at first, I had to sub for like 4 or 5 months. Camden, they messed me up. So I was subbing for like 4 or 5 months, but that's how I got started at Bonzel.
Wow.
And that was what, 98, 90?
That was 98, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yo, that's
all 98.
So everybody's journey is different. You know what I'm saying?
Listen, everybody's journey is different.
Like
I just always knew, because living in Whitman Park or Pollock Town or whatever y'all want to call it, and the boys going to Bonzel, he was the basketball coach, and he had this like Suburban or some big old truck. It was like blue or something.
Tahoe.
Yeah, Tahoe, yeah.
That wasn't what I was driving when I first got there.
And
I had that little blue Honda Accord.
I used to always see him like moving kids around, and I'm like, who's the black young guy that's at Bonzel? And they was like, that's the basketball coach, Bell. Now, I always knew your name, but we never, and even when I was coaching the little girls at Cream, when we would come to Bonzel to play, he just always had this mean look. And I'm like, this guy, where's he from? I never had a conversation with Bell in all the years he worked in Camden. And I was a police officer, community police. I never had one conversation.
Crazy.
I just knew him as the guy that was the basketball coach.
With the
I didn't even know if
with
he
the
was
meme.
I didn't even know he was a teacher. I just thought he coached the boys, and all the boys talked about their coach, Coach Bell, Coach Bell, Coach Bell. And I'm like, the boys respect him, but I don't even know this guy. Where he from?
That's what's up. Now, how long was you coaching, or how long was you at Bonzel? Because we won't get into how you just moved up, and you know what I'm saying.
It's a crazy story. So I was at Bonzel for 10 years.
10? Okay.
Yeah, 10 years as a teacher,
okay,
and I was there 2 years as the vice principal.
Okay.
But those 10 years were probably some of the best years of my life.
Gotcha.
And like he said, like sometimes I used to laugh, like I don't know why these kids like me, right?
But it was the roughest kids from the neighborhood.
That's how big.
Like the rough ones.
Once you, what I've learned over these 30 years, like because when I first started teaching, I mean I'm in special ed, but I was working with the behavior kids with the behavior disabilities for forever. You know what I'm saying? And people always ask, like, yo, why don't they give you problems? Like, why do I have all the problems, but they go to you? And like the principal, shout out to Mr. Henderson, he would give me I was aware at South Carolina Alternative, he would give me the worst of the worst, but he come by the class like yo, what do you do? How do you get that done? But I just want you show kids that you care, and you're trying to help them, and you got their best interest at heart. They rock out with you.
Yeah, kids will sniff you a mile away.
Right.
And when I got to Bonzo, man, I don't even want to. I could have a podcast for 7 hours telling stories about some of the stuff, but I just remember always thinking in my head like they're just kids to me, right? And I had been in Baltimore and had been in the cities and stuff, and so I just feel like they're just kids. And one of the things I realized over the years, like the older you get and the smarter you get, the more experience, you start to formalize like your ideologies about kids. And one thing I always thought about kids is that kids want discipline. They want structure.
I agree.
And they want to see how far you're going to go to give it to them, if it's real. And the kids also want you to be who you are. Like the kids don't want you to be like them.
True.
And I was young, right? I was in my 20s when I came to Bonzo. And I remember the first couple of days there, I had a shirt and tie on. And I remember my principal coming to me and saying, "Aren't you an art teacher? Like, why you got that shirt and tie on every day?" But that's how teachers dress back then.
Right.
I
Yeah.
remember Dr. Thompson, rest his soul, he was a IA. He had a suit on every day. Mr. T, he had a suit on every day. He was sharp. Like Mr. Medley and those guys that taught, they had on suits. So I was like, well, let me not come in here look like a bum.
Right.
But she said to me, you should dress like an art teacher. I said, say less. And everybody knows I'm a sneakerhead, so it was sneakers and jeans from then on out.
From then on out.
Yeah, and I think the kids kind of got a kick out of that.
Right,
and I used to always say, like, why y'all so, like, I'm in my 20s, like, I set the trends here. I'm a sneaker guy, not y'all.
Right.
And I was worked in Foot Locker. I've always been like a sneakerhead, and I think that's what intrigued them. And then like I was an art teacher, and so I used that to get them, to get their attention. Basketball, and at that time I worked with some great other dudes. Tremaine Harrison worked with me, Kareem Ali.
That's my boy right there.
Shout out to
Kareem
Kareem.
Ali is my boy. I coach his son right now in football. His other son's at Boston College right now, just left us and whatnot. Yeah.
Kareem was
that's
there.
my guy.
Val Lawrence was a home ec teacher.
That's my girl. I coached with her brother, Reggie Lawrence. We graduated together. She still works in Pensacola.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Okay.
Miss
Small
Bradley.
world.
Yeah,
Small
Miss
world.
Bradley,
That's
who's
crazy.
over at Big Picture Learning Academy. We all, it's so many teachers. I don't even start naming people because people get upset.
Right.
If you forget somebody, right?
It was so many great people in that building, and that community, was just like, that Whitman Park community just, they embraced me, and I loved it there. And I was coaching basketball. I thought I was the real deal. Like I coached middle school basketball. Like I was coaching D1.
Yeah, he was serious.
That's what's up though.
Yeah.
But you said something that we talk about all the time. Well, I talk about all the time. The fact that kids want structure, discipline, and through it they want love. So that's why I tell people all the time, if you look at some of your kids with the roughest stories that's like in the NBA, NFL, they always fell in love with their coach. Like their coach became like second dad because they go to practice because they want structure, discipline, and love, and then they get a meal or two sometimes. But most of the guys, young men, and some of the females, the coach becomes second mom or dad because kids want structure, discipline. It's not hard.
And it's funny because it's not like I had this like great theory in my 20s about what kind of structure and discipline you needed. It's how I was raised.
Right.
So when I came to Bounds, I'll never forget. I was standing in the hallway, and this lady was like, "Oh my God, we're so glad to have you." And she said, "These kids are going to be able. They're going to be able to relate to you because I know you've gone through some of the things they've gone through." I looked her right in the face. I said, "Nope,
nope.
I don't know what you're talking about."
Nope.
Like my mom and dad been married at that time 45 years. It was I come from a nuclear family. All my brothers and sisters like that. That's we
same
grew up,
parents, same household.
My parents were like devout Christians, but let me just go back to parenting. The only reason I think I've had any kind of success as an educator is because my foundation. My parents laid the greatest foundation for my brothers and sisters and I because they laid it with balance, right? And so like growing up in a Christian household, a lot of people, you know, the parents do one thing on Sundays and act a certain way, and then come home and they be cussing and fussing at each other or doing whatever. And my parents, I just didn't know anything. My parents were never like that. Like, we went to church because that's what we did. And when we came home, my dad, the only reason why I know about, you know, destruction and discipline, because my dad was that type of dude. He was the coolest guy on the planet. You know, we love sports because he used to be into sports. He, you know, be going crazy watching the Sixers and all that kind of stuff. He provided no matter what it had, no matter what it took, he had to provide for his family. He, you know, he took care of it. He took care of my mom. You know, my mom didn't want for nothing, and he put his family first. That's all I knew. So like, I went to bed every night, and I knew my dad was in that room. Right down the hall. It wasn't. I never seen my parents, you know, go through. You know, like, of course they fuss at each other as parents, but you know, it was never like we worrying about my mom and dad. Like, it was just, that's how I grew up.
But isn't it crazy that as far as we come, that the assumption was that we didn't. Like, I tell people all the time, I didn't have friends that had single parent households.
Yeah,
I didn't. But all my friends had dual parent households. My first friend from a project or a single parent household was after I became an officer. It was like 1999.
Yeah.
But all my friends growing up, my core circle of friends, Stacy Threadgill, Keisha Wright, Sherelle Smith, they all had dual parent households. So I didn't know what it was to, like, because they assume somebody had a single parent.
True.
I mean, it's such a blessing because, you know, my dad passed away a few years ago, but you talking about like having parents all the way up into your 40s. My mom's still parenting me, you know.
Right. Nah, they don't
stop. I didn't get that. He has
don't
that.
Stop. Yeah,
I didn't get that. I didn't get
Jesus.
But
the
older you get, you just like realize that, man, I was really blessed to be able to have that type of parents. And my parents are not educators and not college graduates. You know, I don't know, you know, I asked my dad about school, and you know, he don't give you no information past high school, past middle school. He was the smartest guy I knew. You know, he knew a lot of information. He was just so, you know, he knew a lot of different people. He could, you know, perform in a lot of different circles. He had a lot of different friends, from rich friends to, you know, poor friends, and you know, he was just well versed as a dude. And so I think like that really helped me. So when I got to talk to kids, I just wanted to give them something different. Like, one of the things that the kids were just enamored by, they would say, "Mr. Bell, you don't got no kids?" I'm like, "No, I'm not married. I don't have no kids." And I said, "Listen, I'm just telling you what I know. I want to make sure that, you know, when I have kids, that I'm married." And they were like, "Wow." And I was like, "But if that's not your situation, I understand.
Right.
But that's how I grew up."
Right.
And they were like,
I broke that mold.
But I think it was just, it's all right. Like, everybody's path is different.
Right.
But for me, it's just like, that's all I knew.
Got you.
And that's how I was raised, and that's how I wanted to kind of, you know, live my life. So I didn't have kids till I had my first kid till I was 37.
Okay.
That's probably why I still got to work. I got a 13-year-old.
How many you got?
I have two.
Two, okay.
And I have one stepson.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll be working for the next.
Yeah, when I had my kid, my parents was devastated. Like, she done broke all the rules. So then every year.
But you persevered through that.
Yeah, but 18, 19, 20, 21, my dad's like, "So you thinking about getting married?" Every time I date somebody,
I think it's different though, right? I think it's different for women, because most of the time, if you have a child out of wedlock and you're young, the girl is the one who's responsible to raise that child, because the guys, according to most statistics, they go and disappear.
Right.
And so I always think, like, all of the iterations of Andrew from 18 to 25 to 30, 35, I don't think I would have been somebody's really good father at 18.
Right.
Because I don't know if I didn't even know who I was.
Right.
I was a grown man at Bonzel. I I was 30, 31 years old until I woke up one day, had an epiphany. I was like, listen, you got to do something. Like, you got to get a plan here. You can't just keep running into work, climbing the fence to get into work on time. You can't hang out all night.
Right.
Still go to work in the morning, teach some kids.
teach some kids. They see right through your foolishness. You know.
Or they may have seen you. Like, yo, coach, I seen your car going down on, whatever.
No, listen, this is a true story. So that's one of the reasons why I left Baltimore, because I had a little bit of a situation not knowing how to separate work and my personal life, and that's why I had to kind of get out of there. And so when I got here,
you knew the difference.
I knew the difference. I'm never doing that again.
That's what's up. Now, how long were you an administrator in the city?
So I became a vice principal in 2008.
Okay.
And that's like a story in itself, because I was coaching 2003, 4, 5. I was basketball coach at Woodrow Wilson over there with this guy Bob Green. And the first year we won 40 games in 2 years. The first year we won South Jersey sectional. First time in years Woodrow Wilson had won. And I had, it was Hussein and Lamir Bennett and LB, Samaj and James, and we had a couple wild cards.
Bow Wow was on that team, right? Little Amir, yeah.
We had like, we were getting guys eligible like Big Deuce and Jeff, and people would be like, oh, y'all went and got y'all went to the streets to get some players, and we had a great year, and we won. We beat Camden High for the sectional title that year. First time we won in a long time. We were rolling, man, and we got cheated by Manasquan. That's why I don't have no sympathy for them. What just happened. And so the next year we come back and we lost early in the playoffs, and then Coach Green resigned. And so I was like, well, this is my team. So, right. And everybody knew I was coaching that team anyway. They were my kids. Right. And then Woodrow Wilson got a new principal. The new principal wanted to hire his friend, and next thing you know, I'm out. I had transferred to Woodrow Wilson as a teacher. I show up to work the first day, like, nah, you're not here. After I didn't get the job, I'm like, well, I still got to go teach. Right. Like, nah, he made sure I wasn't. Nah, you're not in this building.
At all.
I sat in central office for 3 days, so they found somewhere for me to go. So I had to go back to Bonsall.
I have a question for you, because I know a lot of people don't know how that works. How do you get your principal cert? To be a VP, you got to be a principal. So, have a principal cert, right?
That's a great transition into this story, right? So after I didn't get the coaching job, right, a friend of mine was taking me to pick my car. My car was in the shop, and she had the board minutes sitting on the floor. And I asked her, I said, Diane, what is this? She's like, it's the minutes, Bell. So I'm looking through there, and I see somebody's salary as the vice principal. And the salary was $100 and something thousand. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. This person makes this money? And they were like, she was like, yeah, like, where you been at? I'm like, oh, no.
I need parts of that.
I need parts. How? Because I thought the person was a little incompetent, right? Okay. I'll be honest with you, right? And I said, how do I get? And she said, well, you got to go to school, get a master's degree. And she said, go to Wilmington. That's where everybody goes. Man, I was on. I drove down to Wilmington the next day. I just walked in the office and said, how do I sign up for classes? Okay. And they said, you got to get your transcript. I was like, transcript? I went back then. Wasn't no internet. Right, you got to go back down to Morgan, get your transcripts. So I signed up for school to get a master's degree in educational leadership, and I finished that program in 1 year. That's how determined I was. And I remember my vice principal at the time telling me to my face, you are not administrative material. And she would not give me a letter of recommendation. I asked her just to be funny to see if she would do it. She said, I'm not giving you no letter of recommendation. You are not a leader. You don't have that type of potential, and I'm not signing that letter. And she did everything in her power to like really disrupt my career.
Have you seen her since you've been?
That's another story for another podcast.
Because I know it's egg all on that face.
It's another story for another podcast.
But it's so crazy how people just want to predispose their feelings on you, like, and try to deter no, you're not good. You can't. You're not. You won't be able to do that.
Y'all have to let me tell this part of the story, because I want to kind of encourage somebody.
Definitely.
Like, so what happened was I went, and she was the VP, and Dr. Rock, who was fantastic to me, was the principal. And she would always tell me, when I first got to Bonds, I was there 2 weeks, she said, you got to stop coaching. You're going to be a principal one day. I'd be like, lady, come on. Like, I only been here like a month. She said, you have a gift. And so here it is 10 years later. I finally decided to do it. And when I get finished, I'm looking for a job. So I'm applying in Camden And I wanted to go to Camden High. The same person who fired me from being a basketball coach was in every interview I walked in. And I used to walk into interviews and he used to just start laughing. And I'd just be like, well, I know this ain't gonna work.
Right.
And I got a couple, so I started to get discouraged and I said, I'm leaving education. And, most people don't know, I have a twin brother who works in the music industry. And I thought, well, maybe I can get into music management. And so I was like, maybe I'll just, work with him. And, we were close. And I was this close to like, I'm done.
Right.
And one day I go into work and Dr. Rock calls me in the office and we had like a little tiff at this time. We weren't really seeing eye to eye on something. But when she calls you to the office, you always get that little
Right. Like
she's a short lady, short white lady. I'm still I gotta go to this lady's office. I got the little butterflies in my stomach. Right. And she said, I don't know why I'm doing this, but go home. At this time I'm living on Atlantic Avenue. Okay. So I'm living right down the street. She said, go home, put a shirt and tie on, and go down to Front and Cooper because the superintendent wants to meet you. It was the new superintendent, Dr. Young. And it was Dr. Young, Ruben Mills, and Andrea Kerwin. And I said, what you want to meet me for?
Right.
And Mr. Dixon, who's the principal at Caddo, was our vice principal. And me and him have always been cool. But he was getting promoted and he was going to be a principal at, I think he was at Creative at the time. And she said she needed a replacement for him. And they had somebody that they wanted to put in there, but she said she thought I should do it. And this lady, me and her, we haven't spoken in 4 or 5 months. And she just walked in and said, I don't know why I'm doing it. I can get into that later. Right. And so I go down and they go to the 7th floor. I had never been, to the 7th floor. I've been to the 3rd floor, still Goldblum, but never been to the 7th floor. And I'm like, man, that's nice. Like looking around the big ceilings. And I'm sitting there and Andre introduced herself. Ruben, Dr. Mills introduced himself. And out comes Dr. Young out of this door. She got on this white, like, a dress or pantsuit, whatever. It was like regal. I was like, man, this lady, black lady, hair was done up sharp. She said, hey, young man, how you doing? And I was like, I'm good. And she said, so somebody's telling me I need to make you the vice principal. And I was like, absolutely. I was so raw and unpolished then, right? And she said, why should I? I said, you see me? I said, I'm not scared of nothing. Like, I know these kids. And she went, ooh. I was like, yeah. I said, I'm a dude. I'm a man's man. Like, come on, y'all got to give me a shot here. That's how I was talking in the interview. And she said, all right, you the vice principal. I said, what? I had been on 6, 7 interviews.
Right.
My own people was just, no. Here this lady comes in. She had been there maybe 6, 7 months. She was like, yes. And so I'm always pushing the envelope. So I looked at Mr. Mills and said, ain't no chance I can get to Camden High?
Right.
Because I didn't really want to go back to Bonzel, to be the VP. I was like, ain't no chance I can get to Camden High? He was like, slow down. And so this is the middle of February. So on Friday, I go back to the building and I start telling people. I start telling Miss Bradley, I told Miss Lyon, I said, yo, I'm about to be the vice principal. Congratulations. I get in Monday and everybody's happy until you got to tell somebody what to do. And that thing, turned on its head quickly. It was a tough transition. And then that summer, the principal who recommended me was getting promoted to go to central office. Okay. So the other person who was the vice principal who thought I was a goof was now my boss. And the next year taught me probably every life lesson that I needed to learn about perseverance. Right. And at this point, I had, when I got the job, my wife was pregnant, and it was just like such a blessing, man. I was like, man, I'm great. I got that first paycheck as a vice principal. I was like, ooh, man, I made it. I'm making some money now. And then, I remember coming home to my wife and saying, you don't believe this. I said, Doc left, and guess who's the principal? And man, that year was rough.
I'm sure.
So you'll say in a 12, 13-year span, you went from being VP to a superintendent of a school district. So it's like a 13-year transition for you?
Quick, man.
That's quick.
You know what happened was, and each position, I never was like, oh, I got to do this next, or I need to do this. I never had aspirations to be a superintendent.
And it just organically fell?
It's God ordained. It's purpose, right? And I really believe that, because when I was a vice principal, I said I could do this forever. I'm cool, right? And I just did discipline, and I used to see me on money from in the morning. I had my suit on, getting these kids in the building, right? I'm in the corner stores. I'm walking the streets. I'm cool with this. I could do this. Right. And then after a while, I said, no, man. I'm not gonna keep listening to somebody on
Like
top
that.
of my head.
Right.
Yeah.
I need to be the principal. And Dr. Young, we were at a board meeting one time, and I had to go. It's my first board meeting I've ever been to, and she pulled me into this closet, and she said, "I'm going to lay you off in June. You're going to get a layoff letter, and I need you to not panic, and I need you to be quiet, and I'm going to put you in the building." She said, "Worst case scenario, I'm going to create a job for you, but we want to make you principal. We don't want to lose you because if I lay you off, you're going to go get a job somewhere else." I didn't even know about all that, but I was like, all right, I'll be quiet. And she said, if I hear it, it's off the table. So I said nothing. My principal still got a thumb on my neck. So I get my layoff letter. I'm walking on. I said, yeah, they're going to lay me off. She said, you'll be all right. I knew she was like happy.
Right.
Lay me off. I go home, I get my letter. They had a board meeting that night. It's the summertime. 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. I'm watching TV. Mr. Mills calls me and said, congratulations, you're the principal at HB Wilson. Me, I'm still crazy. I'm asking, I said, you sure? You sure I can't stay at Bonzo and send the other one to HB Wilson? He said, Bell, it's a brand new building. You're going to get HB Wilson. It's 2010. I'm like, all right, cool. So I go to HB the next day. I got my hat on backwards. I got my shorts on. And I go in. I'm looking around the building. I said, oh, this building is nice. So it's a bunch of maintenance people working there. The lady said, can I help you? I was like, yeah, that's nice. I'm going to be working here. And she said, working here doing what? I said, I'm the new principal. I said, maintenance person. She said, give me a second. She went in there and called the police.
Oh,
She thought it was somebody off the street. I was wondering what was taking so long because I wanted to take a tour of the building. So then, she must have figured it out. And,
Did she still work for the district?
No.
Okay.
No.
You got rid of her? Did you get rid of her? No, I'm just joking.
Another podcast. So that's how I ended up at HB.
Yeah.
And
that's crazy.
I ended up at HB, and man, some of the other principals weren't happy. They weren't happy. They didn't think I deserved it.
Dang. Be our own folk.
It's always our own folk, but I just liked the aesthetics of it. The kids need to see you guys. Like, you guys are black male educators, which are rare. You guys are strong. I'm gonna use that term, strong black male educators. Because for a while, the male educators weren't as strong as they could have been. And I think it's good for the young people, especially young males, to see you guys and be able to equate education with being strong and black, because at some point it kind of geared away from that.
Mm-hmm. And the responsibility is tough, because when you know that so many young people, males included, but even some of our female students who looked at you as like an uncle or father figure,
Right.
There's also very little wiggle room to be really like jammed up into stuff, right? So I always had to worry about how I was carrying myself, and even outside of my work. And so that was like super important to me, because the weight, and I still feel this way, like what's on my shoulders, and I'm always just trying to clear the path for somebody else behind me. And so, I did my 5 years as a principal, and I learned a lot about myself. A lot happened in my life within that 5 years. And then the district goes through another transition, and Paymon comes in. So I'm still a principal his first year. And he comes in, and we know each other. And at this time, I'm complaining. I'm complaining about my money, because they had just hired a bunch of new principals, and the principals was making way more than I was. And I thought I was the best in the business. I'm like, yeah, man. Like, I wasn't even making six figures. I said, I got all these kids here. I got this building. I got 700 plus kids, jammed them in HB Wilson. And I treated it like, people back then, we used to have special transfers, and parents would come in crying, you got to take my kid.
Right.
And, I would take them, and we had a good thing at HB, and I had a good group of people working with me. It wasn't just me, I had a great group of people, and we were rolling. And then Paymon came in, and my last year at HB, they had that big layoff. Remember that big layoff?
Yeah.
Laying off all these folks. And
That was 11, right? 11, 12?
that was 13.
13.
Going into 14. And Andrea Kerwin at the time called me and said, hey, man, I think there's opportunity for you to come downtown and come to central office. And I was like, Nah, that's crazy. Like the state just took over. Like I ain't gonna have no job fooling around down there. And my wife was sick at the time, and I remember like they asked me like 100 times to come down there. And then the layoff happened, and I realized I wasn't getting all those great teachers that I had, those young teachers. I wasn't getting them back, and I had to start over again. I was like,
I'm out.
I'm tapped out. I said, let me go to central office. But really what happened was, at the time my wife was like, yo, you got to take this opportunity. You got to take it. And so I took the opportunity to go downtown. And I didn't know that kind of Andrea set me up. She wanted me to go downtown because she was leaving. And that's how I ended up in central office. And then built my relationship with Paymon. And it was good. And then some things happened. And then I went out on a leave for like 7-8 months. And I came back, just everything was different. And then we transitioned, right? So the district transitioned, and I was trying to get my mojo back. And I had applied for a position that I didn't get. And when I didn't get the position, I knew that my time there was up because I knew I wasn't in the plans for what was ever happening. Somebody looked at me and said, again, no, no, he can't. He's not. Right. But I stayed. So I'm not a person I'm not emotional. Right. So I stayed for like a year, and I always believe it's going to work out. And Woodbury called me a couple of times and was like, we got this position open. So one of the guys on the board, he used to be the bank manager. Remember the PNC on Mountington Avenue over there?
Yes,
right
yep, Pathmark, right?
Yeah. So he did a couple of programs with us at HB, and he was on the board at Woodbury. I never knew that, and so he, jumped in my DM on Facebook and said, "Hey man, apply," and I was like, "Nope," and he said, "Apply, nope." And one day I went to work, and it was a really bad day. I had some bad check-ins, I had some bad meetings. I was just not happy. I just thought I wasn't doing anything. Right? I was kind of like wasting away. I said, my resume will be over there in an hour. I sent him my resume. By the time I got to the second interview, I was like, yeah, this is where I want to go. I want something different. Because it just felt good for somebody to want you. Right. And
now, what was it? That was for the superintendent?
That was for the superintendent.
Okay.
So I had went from vice principal to principal. And then I went to, I was a principal coach. And then I was a chief academic officer in Camden. And then I was when I came back after my break, I was a chief strategy officer. But they were just trying to find somewhere for me to get in. And when I was doing that strategy role, I wasn't really working in the schools anymore. So I didn't, everything is about influence. Like I used to have a lot of influence. I came back at a break and nobody was listening to me. I would say, no, we should do this. We should do this. And I just realized my time was up. And God was going to move me on to somewhere else, and I wanted to stay, but I was resolved to move on. And sometimes what we want is not what He wants for us, and so he was put me in another. He was getting ready to set me up nice, and I was trying to hold on to something that wasn't for me. And he was like, "Nah,
I got something over here. Just let that go. I got something."
And usually how that works, right?
Yeah, and then you just got, if somebody would ask me, like when I first started, "Yeah, you gonna be a superintendent?" I would just laugh, like, you gotta be joking. But the superintendency is, it's hard work. It's not.
How many schools?
We have 4 schools in Woodbury. Okay. Actually, it's like 5, but the junior senior high is actually in one building. Okay. So that's where the majority of our kids are at the junior senior high. And then you have Evergreen, Walnut, and West End. Okay. And it's just been like such a crazy transition because Woodbury is such like a small, tight-knit community. And, not with a lot of outsiders. And I was an outsider, first black superintendent. So most people don't know there's 650 plus districts in the state of New Jersey that require a superintendent. Yo, and take a guess how many black superintendents there are?
2.
15.
I went on the low end.
When you think about all the major cities, it's 32 to 33.
Oh, God.
Fluctuates.
And the only reason why I knew that number about, because y'all had a superintendent conference somewhere, and y'all put a picture. So I kind of remember the pictures.
Shout out to Dr. Poteet and Winslow, who created the group, National Alliance of Black Superintendents in New Jersey. And so it's like a lot of groundbreaking stuff. And it's a lot of decisions. It's not the hustle and bustle people think of every day. It's not like you always got your head on the swivel. Right. It gets like that at times, but it's the actual like architectural design of a district. Like where are you taking this district? Right. And it's about governance. It's about finance. It's about curriculum and instruction. It's about community care. Like it's like some buckets that you have to kind of be versed in, and you have to know policy. You have to know, school boards, and and know how things operate. And one thing I will say is that when I talk about people wanting to be a superintendent role, they're like, I don't want to do politics, and I say, well, don't be a superintendent. Don't do it, because politics are involved, whether you like it or not.
Right.
But politics is in everything, and I think I had to learn that after policing. Like, because I never wanted to be in the politics, right? But then I realized politics governs everything. And at some point, you're going to have a courageous conversation with somebody you may not see eye to eye, and you may even have to hold hands with them to get the calls or to get to the endpoint that you need. You know what I mean? We don't have to always get along, but if we want the same results, sometimes you got to hold on to hands that you may not have even held on before or wouldn't hold on to, because politics is in everything.
Yeah, like in politics, people think like, I'm not talking about political parties. I'm not talking about it's just the politics. It's the relationships. And you have to know like how to maneuver and maneuver in certain spaces.
And know that you can't be like, look at me.
Right.
That was like look at me, come me. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it is about the past, about being sometimes authentically you without being authentically you.
I'm so glad you said that. I had wrote that in my phone to talk about authenticity of who you are and being comfortable about who you are so that you can navigate certain spaces. In Gloucester County, I go to the Gloucester County Superintendent's Roundtable. It's 29 of us, and I'm the only African American in that room. But I'm always going to be who I'm going to be. And people talk about like code switching and all that kind of stuff. You may have to do some of that, but you have to let people know that who you are. Like, I advocate for my kids and for people of color, but in my district, I advocate for everyone, right? Because I don't just have black and brown students, right? So I advocate for everyone as a whole, but I know that my students may have been at a disadvantage because maybe folks who had decision-making, were making decisions, weren't thinking about those kids in particular and what barriers or challenges was already set in the district they may not even know about. And so I have to make those decisions and make my board aware and the community aware, okay, but this is where we are now. And it doesn't mean that I don't, we're not doing for others. We do for everyone. But I have a group that y'all are wondering why you can't kind of navigate and understand where they're coming from. And I'm like, no, I know what's going on here. So this is what we got to do.
Last week I was at a meeting, and sometimes now I've learned that I don't always need to speak. I've learned that because I used to want to be heard, but now I realize I don't always need to speak. So I was at this meeting. It was about SEL, and where they were talking about what they're trying to do. So I stated that, the adults need to be more hands-on and learn specifically about SEL because the adults are going through so much trauma in their personal lives, and they have to come in and stand in front of these students and try to teach these students who are also going through stuff in their lives. I said, so the adults need to buy into the social emotional learning piece before they can even instruct the kids on how to do social emotional learning. I said, because in the black and brown child, depression and anxiety comes out as anger. So when you have a child that reacts a certain way when you say something to them or you trigger them and they go up and you can't bring them down, it's because they're dealing with anxiety and depression of some sort. So this social worker says, all kids. I said, whoa, I can only speak on what I've dealt with.
Right.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I was a police officer for 21 years. I've been a mother for 36. I've been now within our community doing all kind of work for over 38 years. My problem is I've never dealt with anything other than black and brown, so I can only speak for what I know. Now, and I know all kids are struggling, don't get me wrong, because I do teach teen mental health first aid to all. But when it comes to specifics, I know what it looks like in the kids that I've been around. So it's so crazy that I know all kids are struggling, and I want to advocate and give it all to all the kids, because I do. But when it comes to specific and statistics, I can only speak for what I've dealt with. And this is where we are, right? So the head person that she was like, so Caucasian person was like, I wasn't offended by what Tracy said because she has a point.
I was in a meeting a couple of weeks ago with all the superintendents in Gloucester County, and I was really like, I was pushing people's buttons on this thing. And I basically was telling the executive county superintendent, I said, whenever we talk about, he was talking about diversity and equity, and he kind of said something about like some kids, and I said, what I want the group to understand, I said, and they were talking about my kids were going to do something in the state somewhere, and it was mostly black and brown kids, and I said, but we talk about it like it's an anomaly. Mm-hmm. Like, look at these kids, they're well behaved and they're doing this, and I said, we got to stop looking at our kids like this. Right. And I said, this is not something that's abnormal when kids are having success, black and brown kids, and. So we kept going on the conversation, and one of the superintendents from another district, a white woman said, we talk about diversity and equity, and you get in the room and there's nobody that's diverse in the room. And she said, we need to just, and she was talking to other white folks in the room, like, we need to just sit down and shut up and listen. And so I let her go, and I said, yeah, I agree to a certain extent, but no, I don't need you to shut up and listen. What I need for you to do is ask the clarifying questions.
Right.
What is it that you don't know that you need? She's just looking at me, and I was like, that's the problem. Like, because if you just sit there and shut up, I don't know what you're thinking.
Right.
We need to continue to have this dialogue. I said, because I know you struggle when that parent comes to your building and they're African American and they're ready to turn up and tear up. I know good and well that makes you nervous.
Right.
And sometimes you don't have the wherewithal to know what to do or what to say, because you've just been inundated with images from the media and things about this parent that's coming. Right. And so sometimes you might struggle with that. She just looked at me, she said, I've learned more in the last 20 minutes I've learned in 20 years about how to deal with, in this diversity and equity issue. And for us as like African Americans that get in positions, I don't trip over being no superintendent.
Gotcha.
Because it's two things you look for: is power versus influence, right? I always wanted to influence. When I knew that my influence where I was working before was gone, I couldn't influence decisions. I couldn't influence things that I needed to move on. And now I'm in like the ultimate position because I'm trying to gain this influence with my community, and I think I have it. Like, I'm trying to influence us. This is what we need to do, but I also got the power. But power is dangerous. Yeah. Y'all know it's dangerous. It gets in the wrong hands.
Definitely.
Because people will make decisions
based upon power.
Based upon their power.
Because they can.
Because they can.
Right.
And so you got to be careful. Like, when somebody gives you power, it's almost like, yo, take care of this.
You're right.
You know what I mean? I'd rather have influence. In all of my career, the most influential people are people who don't have positions of power. People ask me about Bonzo, why I had success at Bonzo, why I had success at H.B. Wilson. It's two people that helped me. Janet Johnson, who was my guidance counselor at H.B. Wilson, was my vice principal, guidance counselor at Bonzo, vice principal at H.B. Wilson, helped me because they had influence. And this other person, one of the most influential people I know, Michael Benjamin, the security officer. Because whenever I needed to get to somebody, I needed to get to a family, Benjamin knew who they were. And that dude,
that's what's up.
He had a lot of influence.
Right.
He's still there.
He's still there. He don't have a position of power.
He
wasn't the principal.
Right.
He wasn't, he wasn't a teacher. He had influence.
Right.
And that's what I learned, that influence is so important.
True.
It's crazy because
I agree with that.
Shout out to Miss Casella. Miss Casella just got her doctorate, PhD. So the lady from Archway says to me, and this is no disrespect intended, but the lady in Archway says, do you know she got a doctorate? I said, I don't care. Because I treat the janitor the same way I treat the principal. I don't know what's it. I don't care. You know what I mean? So
Facts. Before we wrap this up, this generation of kids, you know what I'm saying? You've been doing this a long time. I've been doing this a long time. Tracy, you've been dealing with kids. Now you're in the school so you've been dealing with the same situation, you know what I'm saying? So we've seen some things change. I just say that, some things change, you know what I'm saying? How do we, as influencers, how do we try to influence, and this is a question for you too, what are some of the things that not only ourselves but other people in our roles some of the things we need to do to try to kind of guide this thing back into the right direction a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
So I think the first thing that we need to do is, and I find myself as a parent, of teenagers, I got 3 teenagers in my house, is to try to engage and listen more, right? And try to really figure out what's happening with our kids. In education, let's just talk about education. People always, they blame the pandemic, like post-pandemic.
Right, yeah.
And it's not the pandemic.
Right.
What has encapsulated our kids was during the pandemic, everybody got to their phones and everybody isolated into these images and social media, because you saw the boom of podcast and people trying to be influencers. And so what I try to figure out, even my own children, what is the thing that has captured them?
Right. Gotcha.
Right. And I know it's like TikTok and all those other things. And so I'm constantly trying to tell them at times that we have to disconnect from that so that I can get to them as kids. Like we get ready to do something really big in Woodbury for next year. We gonna take them phones during the day.
Yeah.
We're gonna try to
started doing that in Pensacola, and like the CTE program is like started with them this year, and then I think it's going to go to the rest of the building. But they actually installed lock cabinets or whatever you call them. Kids come in, you got to put your phone in there and you get it back.
Because they're so distracted.
Yeah, not true. Very true.
And we can't get their attention because not only are they distracted, they're just so influenced by what's happening on social media. So I would say to adults is, right now, if you really don't want to be in education, you should try to find a way out, because right now you really got to be at your best.
Right, true.
Because these kids are coming full bear right now.
That's true.
And the kids know how to advocate for themselves, and there's a lot of things that are happening that are influencing them, and you got to be ready to really get in there and get in the mix with them. You got to really get your hands dirty.
Yeah, no,
and
true.
And so I suggest that you really try to get training and about the triggers that are triggering kids now. These kids will snap in a second. And they're not. This generation, they don't have no fear.
Nah, none.
I don't care who you are. Nobody, I don't think the kids would be like, I'm not gonna say such and such thing because he's a superintendent, right?
They don't care.
I see them fight the police. They don't care about me.
Right.
So I got to find how to influence them, and I try to be like soft spoken with them. Like the greatest thing about my job, I love about Woodbury, my office is downstairs in the high school.
Oh, okay.
And also my kids go there. So
okay.
I walk the halls always and talk to kids, and it's so nice to have my daughter just pop up, during lunchtime. Hey, Dad.
Yeah, right.
Just come with her friends.
Right.
It's a perk I can't pay for.
Gotcha.
But it keeps me connected to our folks, especially the teenagers, and they got a lot going on. And you gotta set the expectation for them, and don't waver from that. Right. And you gotta always kind of be in explaining mode about why something is happening. And then when you just got to keep loving them. You got to keep loving them, and then some of them make it very difficult to love them. Yeah, but you got to keep loving them. That I know. Yeah, they make it difficult.
That I know. You know
and sometimes you can't say. I used to think I could save everybody.
Right. We talk about that.
Yeah,
can't do it. I've definitely learned that. You know what I'm saying? Especially with the population of kids I was dealing with. You know what I'm saying? I definitely had to learn that, you did your best. As long as I could say I did the best I could to try to help this kid, and if it didn't work out, it wasn't my fault.
Because you just want to shake them.
Yeah, right. Like, what are you doing?
Why are you not listening to me?
Exactly.
Lord knows I done been there.
Exactly. And it's funny, too, because I get a lot of, since I've been doing it so long, I get a lot of kids that are adults now with their own families. I might run into them in the mall or wherever it might be, and they're doing well for themselves. Yep. And they always have that, like, yo, coach, I know I ain't really listened like I should have then, but as I got older, those things you were telling me came to the forefront, and I turned my life around. You know what I'm saying? And that's, that's one of the perks of being an educator. You know what I'm saying? When you get those type of stories like, oh, so you were listening, especially when it's those kids that, like, this kid ain't hear nothing I said. Yeah. And then you see him as an adult. Family man is like, nah, coach, I was listening. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
And the great thing, I know we got to wrap up, but the great thing about being a superintendent is, I don't teach classes, I don't coach no more, I don't really have that direct influence. It's finding people that do.
Got you.
Right? And and maintaining them so that you can maintain them in your organization. One thing about education now that wasn't 10, 20 years ago, you got into a spot, you kind of got there. You had to stay there. Right now, teachers are everybody got left. They popping up all over. Like, you did something? I'm out.
Right, I'm out. Yeah,
I'm over here.
True.
And it doesn't matter whether they've been there 20, 30 years. They'll pop them too. And, they're paying, teachers are, we're trying to pay them. We're forgetting salary guys and say, this is your first year? I'm going to put you on step 100.
Right.
Get you to the top because I need you.
Because I need you, yeah.
Yeah, and so, like, for me as a superintendent, it's like, it's always been students first. But you said about the social and emotional well-being of the adult, we have to really start focusing on the folks who are we're trying to get to help these kids, because you need everybody to be at their best.
True.
If your teachers are not at their best, they can't help any kid.
True.
They can't help them. And
That's
so, gone are the days where we used to lean on teachers.
Right.
Do all that kind of, be heavy-handed. Those days are gone.
Right.
I think we have to get back to understanding that this is a people business, and that you have to make sure your folks are ready and equipped and have the support from you as a leader.
Right.
And I encourage all my leaders, especially my Black leaders, to support the people that are in the trenches. Support them. Support them. Right.
Yeah,
reach out to them.
It's nothing like, it's like Trace, like we always say, like, especially coming from the coaching aspect. You know what I'm saying? When you gain one of your athletes' trust, they'll run through a brick wall if you ask them to. You know what I'm saying?
And it's the same thing with staff.
And with your staff. You know what I'm saying? When you have an administrator, it like some administrators don't get it. You know what I'm saying? And then you find some administrators who might have a teaching background, but back to that power, once they become an administrator, I'm like, dude, you used to be in the classroom. Like, what are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? But when you get those administrators that, like you said, support and, understand what the trenches are like, and, they give you that support you need, you work harder for them.
Right.
I mean, it's human nature.
And I actually work for an administrator who's an amazing person. And that's the key. She's an amazing person.
Right.
And she understands what it is to be a human, to be
a
parent, to be a person.
Yeah,
and she gets you not always going to have a good day. And she gets, you might need a break.
Right.
Go take a walk. You know what I mean? And it's good to have somebody that appreciates, you know what I mean, what you bring. And it was crazy. Real quick, so I say this all the time, and a lot of people are just finding out this to be true, and they didn't know. I don't have a degree. So a lot of young people in their 30s or early 30s watch me navigate through the city and through my career, and assumed, because I'm always in front of them, 3, 6, and 10, 29, I'm in the paper, they assumed that I had a degree. I just figured it out, right? I was in the era of the on-the-job training, so I figured it out. So my administrator said, everybody put your degrees and certs up. I said, this shit don't apply to me. I'm on the leadership team, and I'm like, I don't got nothing to offer. She was like, Tracy, stop. So she said, write down all your certs. So I write down all my certs, MOI, stress management. I'm writing down all these certs. Right. She said, what is MOI? I said, it's methods of instruction. I can go anywhere in the country and teach at a police academy. Right. She said, so you're certified as an instructor? I said, yeah, I've been since she said, that's good. So I got all these other certs where I can train people. She was like, so when she put everything on paper, like all the certs, she was like, you got just as much as a person with a bachelor's, but you're sitting here talking about this don't apply to you. Yeah. But my point is, when you find somebody that finds the value in you, you'll work harder for them. You'll run through the brick wall.
The certs and the certs and the degrees and the titles are nice, but they're not necessary.
Right.
They're absolutely not necessary.
I agree.
I know folks that got titles and certs and degrees.
And are horrible people.
Horrible, right. Facts.
And to be reflective, that's something that, I'm on the other end of my career, right? So I'm like, I don't got 10, 20 years left.
Right.
So when I leave the game, I always talk about my tree. The people who worked under me, I want them to say, like, yo, Bell was good to me, right? And he was fair. He was tough at times, but he was fair. And I want to be, my last 5 to 7 years, 8 years, I've been through some stuff in life. People I should be in the nut house somewhere, right? Some stuff I've been through, but it heightened my sense of empathy for folks.
Gotcha.
So people always say, "Oh, you changed." Yeah, the person I started out in 2010 principal, like, I was kicking in the door. You know, I was taking that job. That's not me anymore. Like I've grown. I've grown as a person. I'm the person who will sit down and listen to you. You know, I can't tell you the amount of teachers that walk in my office and cry, and I'm like giving them a hug and telling them like, you know, it's gonna be cool, it's gonna be all right. And I like that in Woodbury that folks feel very free to come and talk to me.
Gotcha.
I love that because I know what my role is now. My role is the leader, not just in those things I talked about, governance and finance and program instruction, but it's literally to set the tone for my district that this is a place that's safe to work.
Right.
Create a good culture.
Yeah, but on top of that, man, difficult decisions have to be made. True. And it's not always easy to make, you know, some of these difficult decisions. But, you know, you if you can make them in the right, you know, context, you know, not get all over emotional. And I tell people, if you're going to be a leader, you want to be a leader, work on your emotional intelligence. Right. If you can work on that, if you can or not, you are who you are, and try to be self-reflective. Try to read the room. Gotcha. And when you're in these spaces and you got to navigate these spaces as an educator, you should be prepared. Like you talked about degree. I'm in school now. Like I'm on the other side of my career. This was kicking my tail. But when it's said and done, I should have. People always call me Dr. Bell, and I'm like, no, I'm not Dr. Bell. and it kind of, you know, now I'm just like, yeah, I think I should do it. And I'm learning. Okay. It's helping me grow. But it doesn't mean anything at the end of the day. Gotcha.
He has a teaching tree or a superintendent tree. You got a coaching tree.
Yeah, I always talk about my tree.
You know what I'm saying? He always talk about the tree. It's just the trees for me. Like, you know,
I always talk about the trees because it's legacy. You know what I'm saying? Like you know, and like you said, like my guys, they always say, Coach Bird, we appreciate you. You know, when they become head coaches, we appreciate. I wouldn't be a head coach if you didn't give me a shot. Like I've been trying to get jobs, coaching jobs. You gave me a shot. And so, you know, they appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? And I appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? Because it means I'm helping other people. I must be doing something right. So,
and you'll have a couple that, you know, won't meet expectations and do, you know, and meet it. It's part of trying to help. True. But just be honest and open with them and, you know, just
and go from there.
Expectations. And one thing Andrea Kerwin used to tell me, she used to say, listen, I could put you in a room. It's up to yourself to keep you there. Right. That's not my job.
And listen,
that's facts.
I know for me, all I need is a crack.
That's facts.
You give me a crack in the door, I'm coming up in there. And when I'm in there, I'm staying.
Nah, that is super facts.
And that's how I feel about like the superintendency. It's we don't get. I've been blessed. Like these opportunities don't come all the time for us, especially outside of like our communities. Right. I'm sometimes I don't think about it. I think I'm like, man, I'm the first one. Yeah. And I don't want to be the last. Right.
That part.
Right. So you know, I kind of move strategically because I don't want to be the last. Like I'm trying to break down barriers for the next person that comes to be better than me. Gotcha. And hopefully it could be somebody I can hand pick and say, here's your success.
Yeah. So future plans, just continue to grow and rock out, superintendent? Or
well, he just said he's going to be a doctor.
Yeah, but did you want to stay in the superintendent role, or you got some things working up there, like when I finish with this, become Dr. Bell, I'm going to do that?
I mean, there's like some personal aspirations. Okay. I think at some point, you know, I want to help others try to get there. So maybe it's, you know, maybe it's teaching on the college level.
Got you.
It may be looking for a bigger challenge. Right now, I'm happy where I'm at in Woodbury because my kids are there, my daughter's there. I want to stay until she graduates, and maybe beyond. I'm not a person that jumps around, so I've been in Canada a long time. So maybe Woodbury would be my last stop. Right. Who knows? I would love to do something like this, like talk more about education with folks, because I think after so many years, I got stories.
Yeah. I know you definitely. We bring them back. You know what I'm saying? You will be back.
Just stories.
You will be back. You know what I'm saying?
Because you did say you had conversations for another day.
Yeah, so you will be back.
And as you can see, we're showing our longevity. We're at episode 124.
Yeah. So we ain't going nowhere.
We ain't going nowhere. That's beautiful.
You know what I'm saying? We ain't going nowhere.
And I appreciate the invite.
We appreciate you coming on. You know what I'm saying? This is big. You know, people need to hear those stories. You know what I'm saying? Because like I said earlier, everybody's journey is different. You know what I'm saying? So if somebody might be going through something or not happy with their job, just know there's other avenues that you can, you know what I'm saying, you can do. You can maneuver.
It's like don't despite those small beginnings.
Right.
And even when you get into professional challenges and you have to make pivots, it's not the end of the world.
Right. Facts.
And
Facts.
I was deep in my career. I thought like I would stay in Camden forever. I thought they name a building after me and a couple of streets.
A couple of streets.
Yeah. And so, you know, when I realized that time was spent, it bothered me for a second.
Right.
And then you got to say, okay, so what's next?
Right.
And man, I'm so glad that I got an opportunity somewhere else to do what's next.
Keep it moving. That's
and help me grow and as a leader.
Sounds similar to the Camden High coaching situation. You know what I mean? I thought I was rolling, brought the program back. Like, I ain't going nowhere.
Bell was probably the one that fired you.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
My bad. I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. Bell probably said get
I don't think Seth even knows that before you started coaching, I had went and helped Almar Dyer because he had took over.
Yeah, took over because Stargell left. Yeah.
And I was the person who was helping him. And my wife was pregnant with little Drew.
Okay.
And I didn't get a chance to finish the season out. But I told him, man, never again will I come and try to take over something in the middle of the season. That's when I knew. I said, this coaching thing done changed on me.
Right.
But that was fun.
Yeah,
but I'm into girls basketball now. And
okay.
Maybe you ask me what I'll do later. At some point, I'm coaching again. But I'm only coaching girls.
I got you.
That's going to be my next thing.
Your daughter, she plays?
She plays.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice.
She plays, and she's enjoying the game. And I tell her all the time, it's my favorite thing to do is to watch her play.
That's what's up.
And sometimes I sit in there, I almost want to cry when I watch her play. When I see her diving on the floor, being a good teammate.
Right.
Yesterday, she was locked in with her trainer in the gym by herself, crying and screaming and kicking the balls over in the gym. And I was like, yes.
That's what's up. Yeah. Well, they've had a lot of success athletically since you've been there as well. Like, I think didn't the girls win 2001? Did they win the state?
My first year, we won a section. Well, first of all, we bring that winning mojo with me.
Right.
But yeah, we've had success in our athletic programs.
The 1 year football and basketball,
first to ever do it.
Yeah. Nah, Woodbury don't be blind.
Those small cities like that. If you can keep your kids. Try to keep them in the city.
Right. Yeah.
Get good coaches, and things kind of like all come together. You can have great success. The kids in Woodbury are fantastic, man. Like the people are great, and I like it because it's really like family.
Gotcha.
And it really is. And we've had some success, and we got some big things coming.
That's what's up.
We got a new facility, like a bubble facility that we built. That we're about to break ground on. We actually broke ground on. We're about to open it up.
Oh, okay.
In a couple of months, and then we got the renovation and the cap paint, so state of the art facilities in the basement.
Okay.
Building the CTE thing, and then we're putting a extension on one of our elementary schools, 8 to 10 classrooms.
Okay.
Brand new gym.
Okay.
I got one of your guys, or there's my principal, Joe DeLeese, who's the principal.
That's my boy. Played Tri-County baseball together.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Shout out to Joe's the principal at West End.
Yeah.
Just doing a tremendous job.
Joe DeLeese, yeah. My boy Dave, bunch of triplets came through Woodbury. I don't know if you had any. They might have all been going by the time you got there, but I know they played sports and whatnot.
Woodbury's got a great tradition of athletes. That Hall of Fame, Wall of Fame has got some people in all kind of walks of life.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm enjoying my time there.
That's what's up. Well, bro, we definitely appreciate you coming through. You got any shout outs, anything you want to just head out there before we sign off?
Man, just shout out to everybody, right? Woodbury City's Public School. Shout out to my wife, the beautiful Ayanna Dickerson Bell over there.
There we go.
Big Picture Learning Academy.
There you go.
It's good to be married to an educator too, because you can come home and you talking about exciting pillow talk, right? talk about the craziness that happens in the building all day. I know that I said it'd be funny, cut Tracy. But shout out to
true. That's true. That makes sense because you can understand it. Like if you're trying to tell these stories to somebody who's not an educator, they looking at you like whatever.
So
that happened. Suck it up. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But if they're in that same type of field, they could be like,
because
I know what you mean.
I used to say that I never wanted to be with a cop. Like I never wanted to date with a cop because cops are like really screwed up. But then I realized when I was trying to date that nobody understood.
Right.
Like most men are not going to understand I sat in a car with another man for 12 hours and we ain't attracted to each other.
Yeah.
5 days a week. Like my partner, that was my partner for 9 years, Greg Pease, we spent
Shout out to Greg.
12 hours a day together, 6 days a week almost. Overnight shifts. You know what I mean? So people was like, oh, I know they're messing around. So I was like, you know what? Nobody will understand that. So I ended up dating a cop, ended up marrying a cop, because you got to have somebody that and I get it. You got to have somebody understand. You got to have somebody come home and understand when you quiet what happened on that shift. Like I just scraped up a kid I went to high school with. It just wasn't, you know what I mean? So I get it. You got to be with somebody that understands what you're going through, because if they don't understand, you ain't going to never. I've
had some rough days, and being able to come home and say, man, this happened today, and also like give like the big picture of like how one of the things I'm really intrigued about is like making sure our people know how districts actually function, like how the governance happens in districts, how policy works, how school boards work, like how do you get to advocate for yourself? Because we see so many parents that, number one, they come into certain schools and they're not being treated fairly and being treated right. And you think about some of our parents have had really bad experiences as students, and then they right on top of that, they got bad experiences as parents of their kids because they come to school and they don't know how to advocate for themselves or where to go, and then we just make it difficult. We set up all kind of barriers. And so, one of the things I really want to focus on is getting our people involved, like get on the school board for the right reasons. Get on the parent-teacher organizations and advocate, and the folks that I work with to be able to listen to what parents are saying as they're advocating. And if they're screaming and hollering, don't get all caught up in that. Try to hear what the message is so that you can help them. And once you help them, you got them.
Social media platforms.
Just Drew Bell, Instagram.
Okay.
Andrew Bell on Facebook.
People might have some questions, might want to see how they can get into, you know what I'm saying?
Well, if you go on my Facebook, all I do is talk about the Sixers.
It's all good. It's all good. You know what I'm saying?
What went wrong in the playoffs and the season?
Oh man, we need another piece. We need a wing, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying?
You need a power forward that can rebound.
Like a 4-3 something.
You need a point guard.
Yeah,
Tyrese is
two
not
pieces. What's the other second?
Tyrese is not the point guard.
Yeah, I agree.
Point guard and a stronger forward rebounder. You need cover.
Sure, that's another podcast.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's okay. We're going to stop. We're going to stop. We're going to stop. We're going to stop. Yeah. True. Facts.
Backup center.
Yeah. That's a whole different. We're going to say that for another episode. You know what I'm saying? That's what's up. But bro, wish you nothing but much success.
Appreciate it.
Whatever you do. You know what I'm saying? I'm watching from afar and I'm loving what I'm seeing. You know what I'm saying? And definitely glad you came on and shared your story, and because I don't know why I thought you was from Camden, but
most people think I'm Camden's adopted son.
Yes, there you go. We'll take you. You know what I'm saying? We'll take you. You know what I'm saying? Cousin Tracy, there is no Birdcage without you. I love you. Thank you. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to my baseball squad right now. We are 9-4 right now. You know what I'm saying? Turn this thing around a little bit. We're actually, this will come out on Wednesday, but Monday we play for a division title against Bordentown at our spot. So, shouts out to those guys. They're out there working hard and whatnot. That's all I got. What you got, cuz?
Other than the Wellness Weekend coming up, of course, our stuff starts on May 30th, ending on June 2nd. It's a heck of a opportunity to come out and get some support and resources with people that are, going through the mental health journey, and understanding that you do have a support system out here in our community. Real quick, I've been asking him, when do they play at home? I know he invites me to basketball, but he must not want no baseball critique, because this is the first time I'm hearing about a home game. But I'll be there Monday, so I'll be to check you guys out Monday. Lastly, he keeps calling me Cousin Tracy, but that's really my nephew. Don't tell nobody.
That's hilarious. The nephew happens to be older than
only by 60 days, 90 days, exactly 90 days. It's exactly 90 days.
Yeah,
But-
that's funny.
But
Makes me
anyway,
feel young though, so you keep calling me nephew.
so, but outside of that, just understand, like we said when we started, everybody's journey isn't the same. Your road may be different than someone else's, but it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And just always try to persevere, keep your head up, and just know it gets greater later. And those struggles, those things you may go through will definitely be a lesson in your testimony.
There it is. That's why she's the closer on this team. You know what I'm saying? Well, my man, Superintendent Andrew Bell, thank you. You know what I'm saying? Cousin Tracy, thank you. And once again, I am Sechuayo, a.k.a. Coach Bird. I'm the host of the BYRDCAGE Show, and we'll talk to you soon.
It was a stone groove, my man.